Okay.
Good evening, everybody. With it being 6 o'clock on Thursday, April 15th, 2021, I will call this meeting of the the Bartlett School Building Committee meeting to order. And just as a friendly reminder, on March 12, 2020, Governor Baker signed an executive order relieving government boards and committees from compliance with certain open meeting law requirements during the COVID-19 emergency. Under the order, public bodies may hold meetings without providing physical public access, so long as the public has access to deliberations through alternative means. And for this meeting, our alternative means we are using the Zoom meeting platform, and I believe the meeting link was posted on the school district website. I hope everyone is doing well. The first item on the agenda is the approval of our April 1st, 2021 meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mr. Paranto. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the committee. Mrs. Blythe?
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves? Is she frozen?
I think she's frozen, yep.
All right, well, Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Avalos?
Yes.
Mrs. Contos?
Yes.
Mr. Paranto?
Yes.
And let's just document in the minutes that Mrs. Nieves lost her connection. Next item on the agenda is the OPM report. Good evening, Mr. Guyette.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen. I'll be brief because we got some more exciting information to get to here shortly. So you've all seen this several times before. This is the MSBA progress report. This is as of the end of March, so the April MSBA report. Just to give a brief project budget overview, the total project budget is $1 million, of which we've encumbered to date of $970,000, and we have invoiced $176,000 against that $970,000. The OPM's payment update in summary is the total contract amount for the OPM is $234,500. Invoices paid to date, $34,880. Invoices received reporting period, which would have been March of last month, was $5,528. Contract remaining $184. Biggest change since the last progress report and monthly report you saw is now we are beginning to track the architect's invoices. They're set up now in the system, in the ProPay system. So their total contract value is $665,000. We received $110,625 last month. Contract remaining of $554,375. The rest of this information is really going to be filled out more once we get a general contractor on board as we get further into the project. Again, as we've said before, this is the current schedule and where we stand right now. This red bar shows as of the 9th, which is when the MSBA received this report. This is where we're tracking. As you can see, the star where it says PDP submission, that's coming up this Friday, tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. And then this again is the financial information that backs up everything that's in the report, showing what's been encumbered, what's been paid to date, and what's been invoiced for the reporting period. Any questions on that? Okay, then it concludes the OPM report. For this month, I do want to share that for our next meeting, I think a couple of the agenda items we're going to start to get into a little bit more detail. Kent's going to talk a little bit about it during the PDP overview, but we're going to want to talk about construction delivery methodologies, get into a little bit more detail on that discussion, as well as eligible versus ineligible costs and how the MSBA looks at the cost of the project. Because that's going to be coming up very quickly as we get towards the tail end of the next phase. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware of what that's going to be. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Mr. Guyette? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the designer report. Good evening, Mr. Kovacs.
How are you? I'm going to share my screen. just let me know if you see this advance. Did it advance?
No, there's nothing
We
there.
don't
okay.
see it yet.
Okay, let me just stop sharing then. Sorry. Try again. Did you see it advance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, great. So just kind of building off what Ken just walked us through with the schedule. So tomorrow we submit the PDP report to the MSBA, and now there's no vote by the MSBA or anything. We go right into the next phase. And so what you're going to see right now is a snapshot of where we are with the project, but we go right into PSR, the Preferred Schematic Report. And then this is going to be submitted in the summer, in the July timeframe. And then that'll go to the board in August. So the only time there really is a kind of a pause where the MSBA actually has to make a vote is going to be at the end of the summer in the August timeframe. But right now we just shift directly into PSR. So we're not stopping anything we're doing right now. It's just really a kind of a snapshot of the educational plan, the options, the existing condition, all the information that's been presented to you goes to the MSBA, and then we just keep kind of moving ahead into the next phase. So looking at what's kind of being submitted, I want to just stay focused on the main options, and then we're going to show you some conceptual cost estimates that are associated with the PDP that the MSBA would expect to see submitted tomorrow. And so these are our 5 primary options. They're a good range. So you have 2 options that retain the entire square footage of the building at roughly 185,000 square feet. Option 1 is the code baseline. We're just meeting all applicable codes. We are putting some new finishes on the project, but we're not taking down any walls whatsoever. So it's a proper renovation for a large building. And we do have some finishes that are associated with that. Again, all these should be looked at as kind of a building built for the next 50 years. Then when we get to option 2, this is an option that, again, doesn't take down any walls. So it's still 185,000 gross square feet. We felt this is important because now this is an option where we are proposing to remove some walls and have more excessive renovation. So we want to track what that kind of higher value would be associated with your entire gross square footage. But the program square footage submitted to the MSBA is at 158,000. Option 3 is a building that matches the program at 158,000. And option 4, we go a little bit more aggressive. We take out some more of the existing building and it's 158,000. So there could be some advantages of that with program. But again, it's expected that we look at a good scale of options to be evaluated. And then of course, option 5, new construction, 158,000 square feet that meets the proposed program, all of which we're required to move forward to the next phase. Technically, we're only required to move 1 addition renovation, but I think having those 3 that option 2, 3, and 4 are all important to bring forward. Any general questions on this? I know I presented this a couple times, but I think it's a good strategy just to have a good scale and a good range of the options. Okay. These are probably better in print if you're printing them out, but it's basically all the options with a mini site plan and the floor plans. And so here the code upgrade, we're enhancing the exterior by ADA upgrades for some parking, walkways. We're not necessarily addressing storm water. It's more building related and getting into the building. That's what's expected with the code upgrade. And then in the plans, so we tried to the best of our ability to match some of the visioning sessions and some of the adjacencies that came out of that. And so you can see those noted on the floor plans. So for instance, we incorporated the pre-K program in building C, and we located the life skills special education adjacent to that, because there was supposed to be a nice synergy between those two. And then in the heart of the school, the innovation cluster. So you would come in and we have the art rooms where they are currently, but we would embed the maker space into that and the advanced manufacturing space. So we're within the existing walls, and we're trying to meet the program that was developed over the last months of the project, but without taking anything down. So we're trying to surgically place without taking walls down. So some of these spaces don't meet the space template, but at least they're in the general right area. And then if you look to the left of the plan, we've put the community resource, adult education, the healthcare pathway. We kept the nurse where it is, and that creates a nice cluster. That was a desire, but of course it's not quite at the square footage it needs to be. But again, we're trying to move the pieces around to the best for our ability with this option. Now, option 2 is it retains the square footage of the entire building. We get the program there, and we're more aggressive here. So we're taking down some walls. We can make the classrooms meet state standards, but we still have the vacant spaces that we have to work around. So again, it's an improvement from the previous option, and it retains the entire square footage of the building. And then option 3. So now these are the first options that begin to align with the space program. In this one, I would say the biggest driver is removing the cafeteria and all those landlocked classrooms that don't have natural light. We create some outdoor courtyards with that. So we bring natural light into the heart of the building. By taking the cafeteria out, we're able to really reclaim some green space. And the cafeteria now shifts over into the community wing. And that was a big driver from all those visioning sessions. If the 3 main components of the auditorium, the caf, and the gym could be in one wing, that could be locked off during different events, that would be a huge advantage to this project. So this one does that. So we relocate the gym, the band, and the chorus room. We create a new service with kitchen. We get the cafeteria over there. So now you have a true community wing in building C. In building B is the admin and more academic functions. So you have band, chorus, art, the makerspace, advanced manufacturing, all around this new outdoor classroom that could be working space. We have general academic, we have business management and admin. So this is really the heart of the school. And then to the to the west, we have the district programs. We have district office as is. We have the pre-K program. We have that great synergy with the life skills. And then along the bottom, we have the community resource, healthcare pathway, nurse, and again, adult education. So we can control all these district related programs in building A. So this is really, I would say, the first plan that begins to kind of hit the mark and align with the educational plan and the square footage. Then we move into option 4. Here, we're looking at the idea of removing the auditorium, which is really a complicated space to begin with, rebuilding that, doing a new cafeteria with service entry and kitchen and new outdoor dining to the south. So again, this is, or to the north. So this is an option, being a little more aggressive, seeing what happens if we remove some square footage and rebuild. So there could be some advantages to this, but we feel it's important just to show you some different options. But it really builds off of that option 3. And then option 5, we're over the existing baseball and softball field with new construction where the existing Bartlett High School is. That would be demolished and new ball fields, basketball courts, etc., would be built in the location of the existing school that was removed. I think what this begins to show you is you have a lot of good options on the table. I think the MSBA is going to see it, and probably new construction isn't necessarily required since you have a great building that can accommodate the educational program and your space. So that's going to kind of shift us to, let me just take a minute. Does anyone have any questions about those 5 options? Again, it's concept. We're trying to get a nice scale that you can feel confident going to the community with, but also this is probably the level that the MSBA is going to want to see tomorrow. Okay. All right, I'm just going to keep going if there's no questions. And so now we get into the conceptual costs. And I just want to start with the general slide. just as we don't have a building yet or really a layout, which we don't, again, these are just concepts that we're looking at. But the main idea of this phase is to develop a program. That's why it's called the preliminary design program. And that's been achieved. So at this phase, when we look at building a budget, it's magnitude. We're looking at square footage, new construction versus addition renovation, how much is being renovated, what type of spaces are you asking for? So we're trying to capture that. But for the estimators, they're looking at basically looking at industry tracking right now in magnitude costs associated with square footage. And we're looking at building blocks more or less. And that's where we are today. Now, when we go into PSR, you begin to look at your preferred option. That's going to be submitted in July. So this project and that one singular option will be submitted in July. So there's a lot of heavy lifting to do from now to July. That's why there's no stopping. And the floor plans are developed. The amount of parking's developed. The amount of stormwater infiltration's developed. Not at a bidding level, but at a magnitude that we're able to catch multiple trades. And then on July 7th, we submit that to the MSBA. What's important to note here is this project is going to rely heavily on the educational plan, because that's going to balance the physical project and the MSBA support with how you're going to deliver education. So that's why it's very important we look at these different options. After a successful MSBA board vote, we also will meet with the facilities assessment subcommittee. We'll go into schematic design, and there we will develop the building, the exterior, the look, the feel. We will have all our consultants provide outline specifications. We will understand your site program, your building program, everything that you need into this, and we'll have a lot of community support by then and hopefully input. And that is going to lock in the budget for the entire project at the end of this year. So basically we have from today to December to lock in this budget. And that's important to know, because we're not coming to you right now with the budget for the project. We're coming with a general scale and a range. And that's what's gonna be expected by the MSBA when they review this report, probably Monday. Okay. All right. So now we'll go into the general costs. Now these were conducted by PM&C, Peter Bradley. They do most of the public school estimating, not most, but they're one of the probably best. And they also do assist the MSBA on various committees. So they know public school cost estimating. And I know Ken and his team in future phases are also going to have their own estimator. And that's very helpful to keep it balanced, and they'll reconcile estimates most likely for the schematic design phase. And maybe Ken, you'll have some input on the PSR phase in July, but you can speak to that later. So when we look at the general cost of the project, I'll just start with the base repair. We know the square footage. We begin to map out what the building cost would be to renovate it, a general estimate on the site work, and then the hazardous material and demo. We know that number because Fuss and O'Neill has gone in and they've done a general review. They'll go back in probably after a preferred option is selected and hone into that number. And then that gets you to a cost of $50 million. If we do this CMR Chapter 149, and I noted on the side, there's two methods that the state allows. One is 149A, construction manager at risk. And that's for complicated projects such as renovations. And in the past, the MSBA encouraged this, and they actually gave you additional incentive points, primarily for heavy renovation projects. A lot of teams have started utilizing CMR on all types of projects, even simple projects. And so the MSBA got rid of the incentive point. But the whole point is you're bringing on a general contractor while I'm designing the project. So you're getting all their upfront logistics, information, and strategy, and they're able to start buying out some of their trades early on. And really you have an additional team member. And so that comes at a slight premium. And they say the premium's a wash because at the end, because you're reducing change orders when it's related to Chapter 149. So then just for due diligence, we also had the deduct if you want for a conventional design bid build hard bid. I think that's what you did for Park Ave. That's mainly for simplified construction. So if you have a standalone building and an open field, such as option 5, your new construction, that's design bid build all day long. It's a standalone site over in the field. It's away from your existing buildings. But it's not unheard of that design bid build could be used for a renovation project. It just, you've got to really cover yourself with the logistics, because the first time the bidders are seeing it is when you complete the design and they review it for a month and have questions, and then they're brought on board, where the CMRs are coming on a year in advance. So 2 totally different methods. And I think Ken and his team are going to go into this a little further during the next phase. But we just want to show you, capture that value when we look at the options. So base repair option 1, we're at 50 with CMR, we're at 47.7 with design bid build. When we look at the heavy renovation of option 2, approximately 185,000 square feet, you're at 76 million and 72.5 for design bid build. Option 3, this is a lower square footage, so you see the cost is lowering. We're at 71.5 with the design bid build at 68 and change. Option 4, where we have a heavier demo with that big addition, so the cost spikes back up. So you're at 84 million with design bid build at 80. And then if you look at the new construction, that has a heavy site package on it because you're demoing the existing Bartlett and you're replacing with all the fields, you're at 87 million and design bid build at 83. Now, I think when we look at this, we have to look at this as a scale. And I think you've captured a good scale. Now, we'll begin to develop all those components that go into it over the next phases. But now you truly can see, if you have a renovation project that meets your educational vision and can happen, say with option 3 or option 2, I don't think there's any reason to go for new construction at $87 million. And that's really what the MSBA is going to look at next week. And that's why we need to do this kind of spectrum and this gauge of various options. Just I want to add, and I can go back to the slides, we just put this on a scale. We noted CMR versus design bid build with the various options 1 through 5 and their associated square footages. And then we also know there was interest in looking at the athletic stadium. And so if you looked at that, we labeled it as an alternate. If you go all in with the track, lighting, and here we're tracking around 500 seat bleachers, with the synthetic field, you're around probably 4.2 to 4.7 million. And then a concession stand with toilets that would be required for the bleachers, you're tracking around $1 million. Now that's just kind of a general cost right now. But if you want to have that kind of community asset at the site, that would be the add. And then Vince Doobie from my firm had evaluated the exterior envelope, and our building envelope technology did confirm that we still can get good thermal value if we leave the brick intact, but we're going to build out inside the room with insulation and new walls. And if you didn't want to do that, and you did want to look at recladding the building, the entire building, basically these options range around the $2 million. They're in the $2 million range to strip out all the brick, remove the brick, and reclad the building. Now, we're just tracking this because any of the options, you might say, let's retain 70% of the existing brick and let's do 30%, at the main entry and kind of jazz it up a little bit. But this basically gives you a value if you were to remove the entire brick. Right now, we don't see a heavy reason to do that across the entire building because You do have 2 inches of rigid insulation. It has deteriorated since 1980, but you still get some value out of it. The brick's in good shape. But in that cost, we do capture raking and repointing all those joints within your existing brick.
Kent,
So-
it's Lisa. Could I just ask a question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding. These alternatives are the things that would be above and beyond those options if we wanted to add on to any one of those?
Yes.
Okay. And then my other question is, I remember in the last meeting when we went through the different options and we went through those diagrams that showed us what was kind of in scope for that. But I am curious a bit about what assumptions are being made about option 2 that increases the cost, you know, from that 50 million up to the 75.
Yep.
I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about what's in that from the jump to 1 to 2 to be such a high increase.
Yep. So I can kind of keep in kind of a real general term. Now the 50 million for what we call a baseline is more than just code, but you have to, you know, take out the ceilings to put in all new ductwork. You have to put in sprinkler systems, power and data. When we look at doing that option 2, we're removing walls. We're removing just to meet the program and enhance the building. So that's a extensive renovation. We don't know what option 2 necessarily means yet, but we know that we're going to track moving walls, and then the level of systems will be up a notch. So it's not just heating and ventilation. Now you can start incorporating cooling in option 2. You could most likely incorporate a larger generator in option 2 beyond code. Right now in option 1, we would hit, you know, a baseline generator to meet code. So emergency power only. Option 2 is when you start having larger generators and more building systems that accommodate each space. So we're talking potentially full AC or a sophisticated displacement air system that wouldn't be in the code upgrade because it's not required by code. So there would be a lot of more, I would say, components that meet a typical MSBA project. There's I don't know if there's been any code upgrade projects with the MSBA yet. Now, with that, I'm going to say a disclaimer that they like us to say, it's not that they won't entertain it. It just has to meet your educational vision. But I don't think the MSBA has ever supported a code upgrade option. But I will say they'll entertain it because it's in their writing, as long as it meets a whole series of criteria.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, regarding 149A versus 149, does the MSBA ever demand or strongly recommend one versus the other?
No, they don't. They brought on they leave it up to the district. They want the architect and OPM to educate the town, the community on what the advantages, disadvantages are. Like I said, up to about 4 years ago, they encouraged it by having that incentive point, but then everybody started taking advantage of it because they knew that if you bring on another team member, like a contractor a year earlier, it just makes for a smoother process and it reduces change orders. So a lot of firms started using it just on all their projects. And so the MSBA got rid of their incentive point. So they do see value in it. But I will say, when I was working on the Nauset Regional High School, we're keeping 110,000 square feet of the renovated project. They were a little surprised that we want design, bid, build. The reason why we want design, bid, build on that particular project, it consisted of 6 different buildings, and we were able to move folks around pretty easy without disrupting the day-to-day because it was an open campus. So we explained to the MSBA, we were able to do in this particular project because we had more flexibility with the existing existing campus.
Did that project come in budget?
Yeah, it's just moving into the next phase now, but it's it's design, bid, build, and we're pretty confident. We're carrying about 4 million in portables above that, and the phasing's pretty straightforward. So we're confident. And when you get to that magnitude, when you get to around $110 million construction, there's only a handful of the contractors that can bid it. So it kind of gets rid of kind of some of the lower hanging fruit. So it's okay. In your particular case, you're going to have a lot of bidders who go after it. If you're in the, you know, the kind of 70 million construction costs, if you want design, bid, build, and technically on paper, you're supposed to take the lowest qualified bidder. So there's definitely a little bit more risk because, you know, we're designing the building and the first time they see it is when it's complete. They don't know you, they don't know us. We put it on the street and that's it. The CMR, and this isn't my, you know, I know Ken's going to go more into detail in the next phase on this, but the CMR, you're bringing on a partner for a year before you know, go out to all the rest of the trades.
Understood. Pros
and cons with both.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Atlas.
Knowing how early we are in this whole project, I'm curious to know if it's possible to get an understanding, knowing you know the numbers and you know the MSBA, Ken, of what they would look at for possible reimbursement rates. I'll give you an example. I'm looking at a new school of 87 million that could possibly, say, receive full 76% reimbursement. And I'm looking at maybe option 2 of 75 million that might only receive, I don't know, 50, 55% reimbursement. It would be very interesting and maybe educational to know, you know, which of these options would fit within the MSBA's reimbursement as far as eligible costs.
I think they're gonna treat. So one, just to go back, 158,000 square feet is the proposed program. The MSBA template for 445 students is around 110. So we're already above by around 40,000 square feet. And so with this PDP, we're hoping that they're going to contribute to a big chunk of that. We don't know because the program. You have a smaller high school. And you have a lot of great programs, and so we're hoping that they're gonna understand that. So that 158 isn't the base. It's really more around 110,000 square feet. As far as the reimbursement, I feel it's going to come down to what they're going to sponsor for the overall square footage, and then whether
in the site as well, Ken.
And the site as well. So that
we're capped at 8%.
So right away that large item for the new construction is completely demolishing the existing school and building new fields because you're going to need them. That's a huge lift right there that they're not even going to contribute to. If we are looking at some of the ad renos, and right now we're tracking around 1.3 for abatement, there might be strategies where we're able to, you know, have our hazardous material folks go in there and reassess that and bring that number down. So those are all kind of factors that just lean to the ad reno. So I think you're going to have, if you want with option 3, that's let's do apples to apples. Option 3 is 158 versus new construction 158. You're going to get more reimbursement for option 3 because you don't have the heavy site costs. I mean, that's
right.
That's right there, and you don't have all the demo as part of that.
That's right.
Yeah, but option 3 only has 1.8 million more in site work. You think it's going to make that big of a difference?
It's not reimbursed.
It's not reimbursed. It's fully borne by the town, by the district.
No, I understand, but so you're saying the 60 million for the construction being 11 million less than the new construction building is going to make up the difference on option 3 versus 5.
It's really going to come down. Yeah, it's going to come down to the site and then what your final square footage that they're going to contribute to. They're basically the same option. Now, I think you're already capped at You do get incentive points for renovation. It's on a scale of 1 to 5. So you'd probably maximize that with the renovation, but you're already at your cap with what the state's contributing to. I think it was 68 as your 78 as your base, or it was a high 70s. And then when you 76. Add the 76, and then when you add the maintenance and you add the green, and then there's a renovation factor that goes into it, you're already going to be at your max. But that renovation factor could help a little bit, maybe. I don't know. That's kind of the next phase to look at the reimbursement.
And Ken, I know you mentioned it, but I just wanted to reemphasize again that the numbers that you're seeing here, the costs associated with the projects you're seeing, are strictly the hard cost, the construction value, not the total project value, which is typically historically a 75-25 split, with 75% being construction value, 25% being soft costs. So really the range that you're looking at between the base repair option at a design bid build being, say, 63 million, and the final 5 option as a CMR being about 116 million. So that's kind of the range that you're looking at for total project value.
Right, correct. This is construction costs only. And I think I had a question at the last meeting as well, you know, if we need to look into temporary classrooms. That's probably going to happen, but we won't know until we develop the ad reno options further. And again, there's another item that they're not going to reimburse you on, are temporary classrooms, modulars.
Is that at all built into, I know these are estimates and it's early, is that at all built into these estimates if necessary?
No, we have phasing premiums only to deal with, you know, how a contractor will work within the buildings, but we do not capture modular classrooms in this value right now. So that's going to go into the next phase where we got to really look at, you know, do we need 12 sections of modular classrooms, or do we need more or less? And we can start to hone into what that value may be. And so this conversation that we're going to have before we submit in July, right now, we're just kind of getting our feet wet. That whole month of June is going to be all the detail, all the meat. You know, we're gonna look at exactly what you want to roll into the site. And I think you have a great site. So, and access roads into the looping around the campus are in really good shape. I don't think we need to really wipe out the entire campus. We need to take a light touch here, bring those site values down, because that's what's going to save a lot of the money.
Do either of you recommend, or in the projects you've worked on in the past, do you recommend getting public input prior to that preferred option being submitted on July 7th?
It's actually, there's a small blurb, it's actually required.
Okay.
So in the PSR, the next phase, we should probably map out at least 3 community forums. The first one typically will go into detail about the existing conditions and the program. And then the second one will really dive into the design options. And then the third will be, you know, a nice dialogue on, you know, kind of where the school building committee feels they're leaning towards. And then we'll submit the project in July.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, again, I just want to thank both the staff, admin, and our contractors, our professionals, for all the work that has gone into these options up to this point. Since it is required to be submitted tomorrow, on the agenda is for us to vote to submit the PDP, which is the preliminary design program, to the MSBA. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding that agenda item? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to submit the PDP as presented to the MSBA.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mrs. Contos. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the committee. Mrs. Blythe?
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves?
Yes.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Avlis,
Yes.
Mrs. Contos,
Yes.
Mr. Peranto,
Yes.
and I vote yes, the motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the warrant. We have a warrant before us this evening totaling $42,390. The invoices submitted by Colliers is $5,515, and the invoices submitted by Flansburgh are $36,875 for, again, a total of $42,390. Are there any questions or comments regarding the warrant this evening? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the warrant as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mr. Peranto. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will pull the committee. Mrs. Blythe.
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Avlis.
Yes.
Mrs. Contos.
Yes.
Mr. Peranto.
Yes.
And I vote yes. I'm sure Mrs. Perangeli will put this into the minutes, but just for the record, I believe Mrs. Nieves rejoined us at approximately 6:07. Does that sound correct, Mrs. Nieves? Around there?
Yes.
All right. One other housekeeping item. Mrs. Perangeli did share with me today that there is a new site under the school district website specifically for this school building committee. If you go to the main, this is not only benefit for the members, but also anybody that might be watching. If you go to the main school district website, webster-schools.org, if you click under the Our District tab, there is a link called BHS Building Committee. And on that link, you will find the members. You will also find, it appears, some of the videos of the meetings that we have had to date, and also the agendas and minutes from the school building committee to date. Is that a fair summary, Mrs. Perangeli?
You covered it. Good job.
All right. I didn't want to fail, trust me. Learned a long time not to fail something you asked me to do. Anything else this evening? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Mrs. Blythe, seconded by Mr. Young. I will pull the committee. Mrs. Blythe.
Yes.
Mrs. Nieves.
Yes.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Avlis.
Yes.
Mrs. Contos.
Yes.
Mr. Peranto.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Meeting is adjourned. Again, thank you very much, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.